Anthony Rendon is a former fantasy baseball superstar, but can he return to that glory after 2 injury-plagued seasons? We'll discuss that and more on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here with my co-host and my brother, Matthew Ane.
Yo.
You can find us on all social media platforms. Just search for Locked On Fantasy Baseball, and we'll be there. Please like, subscribe, comment, especially on YouTube, because we love to talk fantasy baseball with you. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more and visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. On today's podcast, we're talking about players you should target as one of your last pick in your upcoming fantasy baseball drafts. And we got a bunch of good names for you guys today. Some names have actually become, synonymous with this podcast in the sense of, we have some certain guys that we love that we've been talking about. But stay tuned to the end because we got some new and fresh names as well that we want to speak about today. And Matt, why don't you talk about our first guy here?
Yeah, let's not bury the lead here with Mr. Anthony Rendon. We all know Anthony Rendon as Mr. Flaherty himself outside of Mr. Alberto Mondesi. Flanges, if you don't know, if you're new to the podcast, it's just me calling him injury prone. It's just really funny. So, my guy is a Flanges guy, Anthony Rendon. But at the same time, I mean, he has had a stellar career. He has had, incredible seasons. In 2019, the guy had, I'm going to read it off here, 545 at-bats, 117 runs, 44 doubles, 3 triples, 34 home runs, 126 ribs. He had 5 stolen bases, which is a little nice, and batted .319. The guy has it in him. He's done this multitude of times. He's a really good player. Problem is, he just can't stay on the field. Since 2020, and 2020 was still a shortened season, that year, he only had 89 at-bats. That's not good. Then 2021, 217, and then last year, 166. So, the problem is his phalanges just been super weak, and they're about to call hospital wing the Rendon wing of phalanges, and it's just going to be a thing. But at the same time, all the last 3 years, you had to pay a premium for him. You had to pay a top 100 pick for the guy that was pretty much going to come with a phalanges, a phalanges special crutches or something of the sort to go with the draft pick, right? Sorry, I'm getting so excited I hit my computer. And, now you're getting him at the reasonable cost of $399, right? He's the pick 224 overall, which is almost your last pick in the draft, depending on what your size of your benches are. And he's a third baseman with a ton of upside. That's why we're talking about this dude. There's a lot of upside. If he returns to form or even gets 400 and change at bats, the impact he can have on your fantasy season is limitless because the guy is still a good player and he's on a good lineup. He's on the Angels. He's got Tyler Ward. He's got Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. Those are 3 stellar names, and then you add Anthony Rendon to the freaking mix, and it's how you doing? There could be some fantasy magic, and that's why Anthony Rendon, we've constantly said his name. And if you watch the last 2 mock draft episodes, he's been drafted on my team both times. Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
No, it's perfect. I can't add too much, except he's the 20th third baseman off the board, picked 224 overall. The value there is absolutely insane. And what's the worst case scenario? You drop him if he's not doing well after the first month or so, and you just pick up the hot hand off the waiver wire. I just want to point out Anthony Rendon from 2016 to 2019 over those 4 seasons. This is his average season. 146 games, 94 runs, 42 doubles, 26 bombs, 101 RBIs, 6 steals, and hitting .299. That's an average season from 2016 to 2019 for Anthony Rendon. Absolute stellar pick at 224, 20th third baseman off the board. I'm trying to grab Anthony Rendon in all of my drafts, this upcoming fantasy baseball season. with that being said, let's move on to our next guy, and that is Mr. Young Joc Pederson. He finally had, somewhat of a year that everyone's been, waiting on off of Joc Pederson. He's getting a little bit older, but still, he's a very, very consistent player in the sense of you kind of know what you're going to get with him. You're going to get kind of a mediocre batting average, even though he did hit 274 last year. Kid's got some pop. He had 23 home runs, even in San Francisco, not a great home run park. He had 70 RBIs, 57 runs. I played 134 games. I think he can improve upon those numbers. I think he found a home in San Francisco, especially when he's coming off the board at pick 247 overall, and he is the number 54 outfielder off the board. I think there's a lot of value in that in the sense of there's not a lot of great outfielders right now in fantasy drafts. I think after the top 35, it really kind of thins out. I just really like Joc Pederson this season. Matt, I'll let you rant a little bit. I got to pull up my rankings here and see where I have Mr. Young Joc.
Yeah, I mean, Joc is great. I mean, I think he's going to be, good for the fantasy production, especially with outfield being so slim this year. It's like slim pickings all around. You know what? I kind of called last year with him making the All-Star team. He's my 29th outfielder this year. You got him higher than me. I have him at 38. Well, I mean, you know what it is, though. I mean,
I like it, though. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's solid. He can produce power. He can produce ribbies. He can produce runs. He's going to get you a 250. I mean, to be honest, if you look back at his career, anytime he's had a consistent over 400 at bats, he batted in the 248, 249, and last year 274. All the other years he was dealing with being dodgered, where he's being platooned constantly and he couldn't get a rhythm. I feel like the Dodgers kind of ruined him because he was a high-end prospect being called up.
Yes.
I mean, when I first started hearing his name, this kid can hit the ball out the park constantly, and the guy looks like he's on steroids because he's looking like freaking, his arms are as big as my face. So, I think that he's going to be great, and I'm just pretty excited. Where do you have him ranked, by the way?
I do have him ranked at number 38 overall at outfielder. And I just want to chime in one more thing about Young Joc before we move on. The thing with him is he was in on a new team last year, and if you guys listen to any episodes of Matt and I doing fantasy baseball podcast, guy on a new team first year, there's a lot of adjustments that come with that as far as where getting a new house, new lifestyle, figuring out what your routine is on a day-to-day basis. Make sure your family's happy, make sure your kids are happy, and then once you get settled in, that pressure kind of comes off your shoulder. Everyone kind of wants to look at stats and have all that analysis. You got to remember, these guys are human beings too, and just being a human being and adjusting to a new thing in life isn't always a very easy thing to do. So with that being said, let's move on to our next player. And Matt, you got to take the lead here. You have to. It's your boy. It's your boy.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about my one of my favorite prospects this year, and that's Mr. Miguel Vargas. Miguel actually, what came out of nowhere almost in the minors and was kind of just slaying it. And I was really impressed with that because he was just wow, look at this kid. And then he comes up and translates. I think his first game, he had a home run, a ribby, a stolen base, and batted like 400. And, you got to be impressed with that. And he continued to do that. But at the same time, I was just complaining about Joc Pederson. And he's on that same team at the time where you got dodgered, and they platooned him. And then, obviously his glove isn't up to snuff either, hence why he didn't play. But at the same time, they couldn't let him get a rhythm, even though he was probably one of the better bats in that lineup at the time, outside of Mookie and Turner.
Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I forgot about the great Freddie Freeman. That's my bad.
That's
bad,
your boy
Freddie.
too. That's your boy too.
That's my other boy. Outside of that, he was stellar. And he would have been a great addition, but Dodgers, they play hard, they play heavy, and they're trying to win a championship every year. They're a great team. But I mean, let's read what he did in the minors, and hence why I have him as my number 10th prospect on the year. He had 438 bats in AAA. He had 100 runs. He had 32 doubles, 4 triples, 17 home runs, 82 ribbies, 16 stolen bases. He didn't strike out a whole bunch either. He had 76 strikeouts to 71 walks, and he batted at 304. And I mean, to be honest, his OPS was even a 915. We don't talk about it all that often, but he's an OPS plus positive right there for OPS league. So, it's something nice there too. I mean, the kid has all the talent in the world, and I think he showed in that short stint when he actually got a couple games in a row where he can build a rhythm that he's going to be, he could handle the bigs. So let's just hope. The only thing holding back Miguel is his defense. So we're hearing rumors he might play second. We're hearing rumors he might play first. He might play third. We don't know where he's going to be, but hopefully it's just a place that limits him half to showing his glove. Because otherwise we're going to have a Reese Hoskins on our hand that's just great bat and great offense but terrible defense. And then with the Dodgers, though, they don't care. Like the Phillies, like they won't play him. So that's the only downside. But that's why he's the last pick of your draft. You just scoop him up and see what happens. And in Dynasty Leagues, I'm definitely drafting him.
Yeah, Miguel Vargas currently is coming off the board as the number 31 first baseman and pick 293 overall. So, I mean, that's an absolute bargain. I do want to preface this. He did have a hairline fracture in, I believe it was
his pinky.
His pinky, was it? Yeah, hairline fracture in the pinky. But the good news is that the Dodgers are saying that he could, be out there when you guys are listening to this in their first, spring training game, which is great news. That means, he's recovering very quickly. You love to see that. Got the best of doctors in the world there in the Dodgers, I'm sure. And, the kid's hit over 300 in every season. He's been in the minors. As Matt mentioned, their Dodgers came out and said they want to give him the job at second base, so he'll pick up second base eligibility fairly quickly. Second base is not, a position with a lot of players that are good for fantasy baseball. And the thing with Miguel Vargas is also, I currently have him as my number 15 first baseman. He's just been creeping up my rankings there at first base very, very quickly. I absolutely love Vargas. Matt really has turned me on to him, and I've become a big, big fan of his. With that being said, though, if you guys are like me, you have a full-time job, you like to hit the gym sometimes, you need a quick snack that isn't too high on calories, but also tastes great, you've got to try Built Bar. I'm not sure how Built Bar does it, but these bars taste delicious while maintaining amazing macros. What's even better is that they're healthy for you. Built Bars only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. If you're in the gym, you're trying to put on a little muscle, got to get that protein in, you got to have yourself a couple Built Bars. They also come in unbelievable flavors like cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And guess what? Now you don't even have to wait around to get a bar. Because for years, we've been talking about only being able to order your Built Bars at Built.com. But guess what? Now you can walk into your local Walmart or Sam's Club and get you a box or 2 or 3 or 4. So next up, we got a couple of starting pitchers here. We talked about a couple of bats, talked about a couple of starting pitchers. 2 of these guys have kind of once again have become darlings here at Locked On Fantasy Baseball. And Matt, I think I'll take mine. I'll let you take yours, and then the third one we'll throw it up in the air. So I got to talk about Michael Kopech, right? Now, Michael Kopech last year, I don't understand what the hate is for. It might be that knee injury that he had towards the end of the year, that kind of limited, what he was doing. But listen, Kopech was coming off a year in 2021 where he, did a lot of, out of the bullpen. He only had 4 starts, 44 appearances in 2021, but, 69 innings. Last year, he built up to 119 innings, and he still had a very, very good year last year, Kopech. As a 26-year-old Kopech, wins weren't there. He was only 5 wins to 9 losses. But guess what? He had a 3.54 ERA, 119 innings, 105 Ks, and the whip was stellar too at a 1.19. So he had a pretty solid season. People forget, Kopech's only going to be 27 years old this year. He still throws absolute gas. His fastball's around, 96 miles an hour consistently. And I just think he still has all that upside. He was a very high-end prospect. I don't understand why everybody is out on him. I think he could build up to 150, 160 innings this year. And if he returns to that form that, he had as a prospect and he had in 2021, I think the K per 9 comes back. Kopech is coming off the board right now as the 77th starting pitcher, picked 272 overall. That's just absolutely crazy to me. I currently have Kopech ranked. I have Kopech ranked at 47. And I once again, if you can get him 30 starting pitchers later than where I have him, I mean, he's absolutely going to be one of the best picks late in your fantasy baseball drafts.
Yeah. I mean, Kopech is phenomenal. We keep talking about him. The reason why I think people hate on him too is because everybody kind of forgot about him because in 18, he was probably going to get the call up, but then he had TJ in the minors. That set him back. Didn't play all of 19, and then COVID happened, so he opted out. Then on top of that, I mean, you're coming back. You haven't heard about the kid in like 3 years. He comes out of nowhere in 2021 and kind of lights up the world a little bit in the minors, getting back on track with baseball, and gets the call up. And then 2022, he does this thing, but then gets hurt again. So he almost has a phalanges tag on him. So it's like, I understand why. And it's like, oh my God, like, why this kid? But here's the same thing when it comes to pitchers and young pitchers. You know, you kind of got to look at it this way. He's had a lot of rest after the TJ. He's also 27. Usually pitchers get better as they get older because they're not playing checkers here. They don't have to just go out there and swing a bat and throw a ball to a base. You know, it's like a chess match out there. So they get wiser and better as they get older. It's not like with bats where the bat speed starts losing stuff and everything. They get better with age. So I think this kid now has all this baseball maturity, and I think he can only get better from here. Let's move on here to my other guy here. And that's Mr. Joc Flaherty. I love Mr. Little Jack here. Well, Little Jack is what we call him, or Jack or Jackety Jack, whatever the hell I feel like calling him in the moment. But, you know, the guy's been playing with a torn shoulder for God knows how long, and he's been great playing with it. Last year, it did sideline him for the first half of the season. He only did manage to get 36 innings in, and he didn't perform well. But you know what? Coming back from a shoulder injury, I expected the control to be off. I expected him to just want to strike out everybody under the sun and then, you know, just whatever, just get back in the groove. His whip was atrocious too. He had a 4.97 and his ERA was a 4.25. So, I mean, hey, it just wasn't a promising season. 2021, he had an injury-prone season too. He dealt with that injury, but he was having a good season, even with the torn shoulder again. He had a 3.22 ERA, and in 78 innings, he had 85 strikeouts. And, I mean, the sky's the limit for this kid because back in 2019, when he first broke out, he had 196 innings, 231 Ks, and he had a 2.75 ERA. He had a magical second half, and the kid just went outrageous. I think he returned to form. He's a young kid. He's what, like, he's 27 years old again, same age as Kopech. And I think that, you know what, here's where I'm going to bring it together with the two of them. I think if they both came up at the same time, we'd be talking to both of them the same way, just injury-prone guys that are just ready to take that step forward. Hopefully they can get a full season behind them and just be boom.
Yeah, Matt, I think it's a matter of if Joc Flaherty is healthy, pretty much. If Joc Flaherty is healthy and he's out there and he's pitching, I think he definitely has top 25 potential, you know. And the thing is, let's do this. Even with a couple of bad years mixed in there, let's talk about Joc Flaherty from 2019 to 2022. So during that time, Joc Flaherty had 26 wins, 14 losses, 3.26 ERA, 65 starts, 351 innings, 398 Ks, and a 108 whip. So even with a couple of bad seasons mixed in there, those numbers still look fantastic. Also, I think it's a pitch mix issue. I think he needs to, you know, find that pitch mix that he had going in 2019.
Well, he only has two pitches.
Yeah. Well, does he? I have to look.
He's just starting to develop a third one, but he only for that season where he had you know, that crazy 231. He only had a fastball and I believe a slider.
He throws a curveball as well. Now he has a couple other pitches. It's a matter of, you know, he doesn't throw them as much. I think he needs to lay off that fastball a little bit. The velocity is, you know, isn't a blow you away type of velocity. So maybe cut back on that fastball a little bit, mix in that, you know, that good slider. And I don't know if how good the curveball is. I have to do a little more research. Maybe, you know, get that curveball in there a little bit more, keep batters off their toes, and just come in with the fastball when he truly needs to. But once again, this kid has shown so much potential in 2019, and he had a great, solid 2021 while he was healthy. I just think it's a matter of him, you know, figuring things out. I currently have Joc Flaherty as my number 50 overall starting pitcher, and he's coming off the board as the number 61 overall pitcher at pick 217. I think he's somebody you can go out there and grab at the end of your draft and feel very confident about it as long as he's on the field.
So here's my thing. I just want one last point on him.
Of course.
So in 2019, the reason why I said he only had two pitches because he threw his four-seamer fastball 1,476 times and his slider 876 times. And then the sinker, curveball, and changeup. Changeup was only thrown 64 times. The other two pitches were only thrown in the 300s. So when I say he has two pitches, he really only did have two pitches that he felt comfortable throwing frequent enough. You know, it's not like he didn't have other in the arsenal. It's not like things changed as he progressed. He really still does rely on that fastball. and that slider. Like there's nothing really out there besides that for him. But hopefully he can work that in this new year. But, I think we've had enough of Jack Flaherty. And with that being said, we do have our friend Lindsay to talk about. We've heard him talk about him for the last month. He's on the prospect he has his own show called Locked On Prospects. You guys, encyclopedia of just knowledge on these prospects, giving you deep insight and takes on all these guys that can really help you up your fantasy game and know who's going to be called up, how to get who to pick in your dynasty leagues and things like this. Or just, hey, you're a fan and you just want to know about your team's prospect. He's the guy to listen to. So, again, check out MLB Locked On Prospects and, check out Lindsay. He's a great dude and a great podcast. And after Lindsay, you got to check out this next sponsor we got here. Here at Locked On, we're super excited about our new sports betting partner, FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here now, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line, points scored, and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine bets for a chance for a bigger payout and same-game parlay. So don't miss out on your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. When you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Man, I read through that fast. But
there you go. There you go.
Now, you can take this guy if you like.
Yeah, let's talk about Trevor Rogers, guys. Trevor Rogers is somebody who came out and had a monster rookie year. And the thing with Trevor Rogers is everyone, he was being drafted super, super high coming into last year, and he kind of got off to a bad start, and it kind of just really, really shook him. He was an all-star back in 2021, so I'm going to read you those stats. 2021, Trevor Rogers went 7 wins, 8 losses, 2.64 ERA, 25 games started, 133 innings, 157 Ks, and a 1.15 WHIP. He actually came in second of Rookie of the Year voting that year. And right now, Trevor Rogers coming off the board as, the 83rd starting pitcher, picked 287 overall. I think that's super, super low. I currently have Trevor Rogers, my 66th starting pitcher. I could even see that moving up if he comes out in spring training and he looks great. So last year, he was doing very bad. He got hurt. He went down to the minors, and when he came back up, he actually had a very, very good little streak here, and I want to highlight that for us. If you just give me a second, I will give you those numbers. So let's do it like this. Let's see how this looks. So Trevor Rogers. Oh, okay. Now that does not look so good. So let's take that start out and let's do it from here. Yeah. No, he had a start where he gave up 6 earned runs against. Actually, it was at Cincinnati, so that's a tough park to pitch in. So we're gonna take that one out, and we're just gonna do his last, I believe it was last 4 starts. So Trevor Rogers' last 4 starts from August 31st to September 17th. He went 19 innings. He had 23 strikeouts. 3.72 ERA, but it was a 3.37 FIP, and batters only hit 233 against him, and he looked a lot more like the Trevor Rogers of old, that almost won Rookie of the Year. And I think he's just somebody that you can get super, super late, probably your last starting pitcher in all of your drafts. And once again, as we're saying about a lot of these guys, since they're going so late, what's the worst case scenario? They don't pan out, you drop them, and then you move on. But I think Trevor Rogers is somebody that has a lot of upside, and you could feel very good about getting him as one of your last starting pitchers, if not your last.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Rogers. I thought he was a great prospect. I thought that 2021 he really was just gonna. After 2021, he was gonna break out. Last year, I drafted him everywhere. I traded for him last year if you followed us, and I thought I was a genius, and it flopped in my face. But I think he was dealing with some stuff last year, and I think that hopefully he can course correct. I'm not saying go draft him higher than pick 287. I'm saying draft him your last pick. I think that you won't regret it. And I mean, it's actually kind of just a dart throw. That's essentially what all these guys are. Is you're throwing crap against at the fan and see him with sticks. So let's see what happens here. But let's read off what he did in 2021. Right, it was only his second year in the bigs too. Just I might add, because the season before he only had 8 innings pitched in the bigs. So in 2021, he had 133 innings. He had 157 strikeouts, and he had an ERA of 2.64 with a whip of 115. Now, if that wasn't somebody that was on the verge of a breakout at a young age, what else is? You can't ask for more as a pitcher as a first big year in the bigs, right? I talk about what McClanahan did. I talk about what Gilly did. I talk about what Hunter Green did, Lodolo, right? That's all stepping stones of what could have been and what I think all of those guys are going to do this year, right? So how can I say that, like, Trevor Rogers is done, he's washed, he's this, he's that? No. You know what? I think something went down, something went wrong. And for the last pick of the draft, I'm taking that shot. And
yes, sir.
The upside is what? A top 24 pitcher at your last pick of the draft? If not, drop them and say, see you later. But it costs you $3.99. But let's move on. So funny enough, I'm kind of glad you put this guy on here. And that's Mr. Kodai Senga. We had a fan ask in YouTube today actually, about him, and I'm glad we get to talk about him. Hope you're listening to the podcast, and now we're going to give you a little bit more of a deep dive. Kodai Senga is interesting, right? He's coming over from Japan this year. It's first time really pitching with American talent, which is a big difference from the Japanese league, even though Japanese league is pretty competitive. We don't know much about this guy other than the guy could throw, I guess, heat. One thing I could say is the fact that he's going to be on the Mets is a safe pick for me. He's one of the few guys I'm going to draft. Actually, he's the only Japanese guy coming in the league this year I'm probably going to draft because, one, he's in a protective ballpark. It's one of the best parks to pitch in. 2, there's a great field behind him. And 3, you're getting him at $3.99. He's the 84th starting pitcher coming off the board. So he's going to be your pitcher 7 in most leagues? I mean, the upside there is just as great as Trevor Rogers, and we don't know what he can do. And shoot, he could be the next Hiroshita Tanaka, and we could be smiling ear to ear off this pick. So let's see what happens. He's the only one I'm going to draft, though, out of all the Japanese guys, just saying. So that's really where I'm at.
Matt, was that Masahiro Tanaka?
Yes.
Is that what you said there? Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Thank you.
So,
can't speak, can't talk, can't write.
It's all right. It's all right. I just wasn't sure if that's what you said. Sometimes, guys, my internet's not always the best over here, so it breaks up a little bit. I just wasn't sure if that. Yeah, but no, Tanaka obviously is
that Terashita.
So Tanaka's kind of like the gold standard of pitchers coming over from Japan or Asia in general. That you'd want to see somebody like them. And if anyone could do that, it would be Kodai Senga. So as a 29-year-old last year, Kodai Senga had 11 wins, 6 losses, a 1.89 ERA, 148 innings, 159 Ks, and a 104 whip. The guy's just been absolutely stellar over 11 seasons in, the Japanese league. And I think he can come over here and do the same. And I'll tell you this. So I was watching some highlights today from camps, and they had Senga pitching to Pete Alonso, and he struck Pete Alonso out. And they spoke to Pete Alonso after, and they were like, Pete, what's that pitch that Senga's throwing that, and Pete Alonso's like, I don't know. I think he's calling it like a ghost fork ball or something. And he's like, I had no idea the movement. He goes, I couldn't time it up or anything like that. He goes, I'd never seen a pitch like that. And then, Senga doesn't necessarily speak great English yet, so they had his translator talking to him, and they told him what Pete said, and he just laughed, and he goes, that's the ghost. So, I mean, like, the guy has the personality, he has the talent, and I want to preface this again. I've said this when we talked about Senga before. I think Senga's going to come out first 2 months, going to have a sub-2 ERA, he's going to be striking everybody out. But that's when, if you draft him, I would sell. I would sell while he's hot, because then the whole thing is they're going to have tape. They're going to, the best players are going to be talking to one another and be like, okay, this is the ghost fork is similar to so-and-so slider or so-and-so's curveball, and they're going to figure out how to time it up. Not saying that he can't still stay out there and dominate, but if the ERA is crazy low, the strikeouts are crazy high, the whip is super low, that's your time to trade him. Go get the house for him. And just reap the rewards, because the second half might not be as strong as he gets figured out. Not saying he can't adjust back, but that's personally what I would do with Kodai Senga.
Solid.
Yeah, so let's move on here. Let's talk about a Yankee. I don't know. I feel like we haven't been talking about enough Yankees here on the podcast of late. But let's talk about Domingo German. I probably should have worn my Domingo German jersey. I've been my jersey game's been slacking. I don't know why I got the Jack Leiter one on today, the Vanderbilt Jack Leiter, in case anyone hasn't noticed. But let's talk about Domingo German. Domingo German last year, finally, as a 29-year-old, had the year that I know I've personally been waiting on. Yankee fans have been waiting on. He didn't pitch a lot of innings, but, 2 wins, 5 losses. That's definitely going to improve. Don't forget, Frankie Montas is out of the Yankees lineup probably all season. Gives Domingo German, a chance to sneak in. No more Jameson Taya, no more Jordan Montgomery. So the room for him to get, 30 starts is there if he does his thing. So last year, Domingo German, once again, 3.61 ERA, 72 innings, 58 Ks, and he had a 1.16 whip. He's actually been a very, very stellar whip guy the last 3 years. In 2021, 1.18 whip, and in 2019, a 1.14 whip. So I think the whip is going to be there. I think the wins are going to be there. And, throughout his career, he's over a K per 9. He's 413 innings in his career, 429 strikeouts. So he could potentially be a K per 9 guy as well. Domingo German's coming off the board. Starting pitcher, 120, pick 366 overall. I have Domingo German at 75 in my starting pitcher rankings. I think, once again, if you're looking for a starting pitcher at the end of your drafts, absolutely take Domingo German and kill it. He's gonna have. I think he's gonna have a solid year.
I mean, German, he doesn't have the greatest. How do I put this? Backstory or likable personality because he's kind of a dirtbag.
Oh yeah, he is. That's true.
But he's great for fantasy, and we don't judge people based off of that for this kind of industry. We just kind of roll with it. So last pick of the draft, we see what happens. I think that German is an option that we should all consider and pick at the last one of our last picks of the draft, especially you're going in your 12-mans, your 15-man leagues, and pitching gets real tight at the end of the draft, especially if you went heavy on the bats. So there's a lot of upside to be had with him, especially with that Yankee lineup behind him. So I would scoop him up and, might as well see what happens. And also too, as we get into draft season, we do our big draft tips episode. You'll learn that Dom and I generally, when we draft and by watching our mock drafts, most of our bench, predominantly of our bench, will consist of pitchers and only have two bats out of 5 bench spots, or out of 7, we'll have 3 bats out of 7. So we're big on the heavy deep pitching because we know the value of it and we know who to pick late in drafts, even when it is getting thin. So just listen on out. And this is one of those guys that we're just going to be scooping up and, just sitting there celebrating fantasy victory. But Dom, I'm going to let you take this last guy.
Real quick, I do want to expand on what you said because it's actually a great point. So the first thing is know your league, guys. Matt and I, like I said, we play in a lot of 5x5 head-to-head category leagues or roto leagues. And the thing in those leagues is your bats can't play every day. You can't play all your bats every day. So if you have 5 bench spots, you can't play all of them every day. With your starting pitchers, you can switch them in and out as the days they pitch. So it's more valuable to have a lot of starting pitchers versus a lot of bats. And, just wanted to chime in and say that's a great point by Matt. And that's definitely something you should, know your league. And if that strategy applies, definitely implement it. Our last guy here, though, is somebody that I don't think gets talked about enough. And that's Randal Grichuk of the Colorado Rockies. He's so consistent, man. He's just a very, very consistent guy. The batting average isn't going to be great, but he did hit 259 last year in his first year in Coors. I think that can go up. He always gives you about 20-plus bombs. Last year he had 73 RBIs and 60 runs, played 140 games. And in Coors, first year there last year, second year there this year. I think he can improve upon that. And outfield is very thin. So if you can get him as number 73 outfielder, pick 304, I think that's a bargain. I currently have him as my 45th outfielder. I just think Randal Grichuk is somebody that, you should be looking at late in your drafts. He's been a 30-plus home run guy before. The counting stats might not be great there in Colorado, but he could be plus power, give you a decent batting average, even chipped in 4 steals last year. But once again, the value's there. If you play in a 5 outfielder league and you get him as your 5th outfielder, I think that's great value.
Yeah. I mean, I think you pretty much covered him there. Last pick of the draft, he's at least worth a dart throw.
Yeah.
Course is always a bonus, but other than that, I really don't got much to say. I don't want you to just wrap this up, bad boy.
Yeah. Fair enough, Matt. So guys, that's all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Check out our website. We have all of our rankings there. We have a little bit about us. You get access to all of our episodes on there. And, thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. If you like what we do, our partner, Lindsey Crosby, hosts Locked On MLB Prospects. You got to go give him a subscribe, a comment, a like, all that stuff that you do for us, which is always truly appreciated. Lindsey Crosby was on our top prospect episode. Go check that one out, our top 1 through 10 prospects for the fantasy baseball season. Guy's an encyclopedia of prospect knowledge. He will definitely help you learn the prospects you need to know for this upcoming fantasy baseball season. And guys, we will be back on Monday, continuing our Mock Draft Monday series. I know you guys been loving that one. Matt and I are we teaming up again for that one? We're gonna team up.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So Matt and I are gonna team up again like last time, or we're gonna do another mock draft for you guys. But guys, also real quick, something that's super exciting. We're finally going to get into our positional rankings next week as well. It's going to be super fun. We're going to give you guys some good coverage on, all of the positions, break them down very thoroughly. So make sure you look out for those episodes. But guys, until then,
peace.